Nightreign is one of those games that gives you just enough information to get moving, but almost none of it to fully understand what you're fighting or why the world looks the way it does. And like Dark Souls, that's very much on purpose. Hey, welcome to Nightlight. This is the first video here. I like digging into lore, game lore, doing reviews, creating conversations around the subjects I'm actually spending time with. I really enjoyed putting this first video together, and I hope you'll stick around. So after playing some Nightreign, once you start connecting the gameplay, the boss encounters, and the item descriptions, a much bigger story starts to emerge. So before we talk about the Nightfarers and the Night Lords, let's start where everything begins. Limveld, the Night, and what this world is trying to remember. Alright, so Limveld. On the surface, it's Limgrave, but Nightreign. Same bones, same vibe, until you realize it's not a remix, it's a system. Because Limveld isn't built like a normal From map, where you memorize routes and you're done. Every expedition shuffles. Points of interest move, enemy packs change, your early day plan gets tested immediately, and that's intentional. The game is basically asking, can you adapt, or are you just following a script? You've got the 3-day hunt structure. Day 1 is you build a foundation, day 2 you're sharpening the build, and day 3 is the run back with the real stakes. You're routing for levels, upgrades, flasks, while the map is quietly trying to take options away from you. That's where the Night's Tide comes in. It's that wall that starts closing, the violet rain that starts punishing you if you're greedy. Mechanically, it's your timer, but narratively, it's also Limveld's whole deal. A land that's been worn down and claimed piece by piece. You can feel it in how every run ends the same way. Space shrinks, choices tighten, and eventually you're forced into the confrontation. And even with that randomization, Limveld still has these consistent anchors. Your churches, towers, everjails, the big POIs you learn to prioritize, so you're not lost. You're reading the map like a player, but you're also reading it like lore. This place is familiar, but it's not stable, and that instability is the point. Now let's talk Nightfarers. Revenant can feel like a mess the first few runs, but secretly she's a lot more durable than you think, because your spirits are your health bar, and when rotated correctly, you're a powerhouse, but if you drop them, you immediately remember you're made out of paper. And that ties straight into her story. She's not the girl from Northern Croft, she's actually a doll that woke up after the night swallowed her home. The question becomes, what's driving the doll? A spirit or a purpose? The Iron Eye is basically your team's insurance policy. You get to stay back and drip damage nonstop, and you're the best revive in the game because you can pick people up from a mile away. Infinite arrows, and it's weirdly unlike Souls, but it works. The whole loop is to mark everything. You gotta dash in, tag the boss, and dash out. Lore-wise, he's from the Fellowship, a contracted assassin. He's helping with the Night, but he's really here hunting a traitor. The Wilder is the poster boy for a reason. Great strength and dexterity scaling, high HP, and he can basically use any weapon the run throws at you. Sixth Sense gives you a free mistake every loop, and Clawshot keeps your momentum up. Lore-wise, he's one of the few Nightfarers we actually see arrive at the Round Table, injured and memory wiped, clutching a solitary earring. His whole story is about figuring out who that belonged to, and why he's gotta take down the Night Lord. So if you're playing the Duchess, you know you're squishy, but the dodge that you have is pretty great, and the whole loop is to poke, restage, and backflip out before the boss turns around. If you're standing still, then you're doing it wrong. Lore-wise, she's way more than the hub NPC. She's been at the Round Table way longer than everyone else, and knows a little bit too much about the Wilder, and keeps circling him without ever saying why. Earrings, bread, little favors, it's all background stuff unless you're paying attention. And that's kind of the point. She's guiding the run, but she's also clearly tied to Wilder in a way neither of them fully remembers. But you should keep playing to find out more. Okay, the Executor. This is Nightreign's Sekiro check. You live in parrying. If your timing's clean, you're melting away bosses, but if it's not, you're just gonna get flattened. Suncatcher is the whole loop. Deflect, punish, stay glued to the target, and when it clicks, he's easily one of the highest damage characters in the game. Lore-wise, he's a fractured person. His journals read like two people sharing one body. A Crucible Knight sent to execute a painter, and the painter herself. Guardian's not here to be the hero, he's here to be the tank. Steal guard, shield up, poke safely, and save your ultimate for revives. Lore-wise, he's not chasing the night for vengeance. He's already watched his old flock, the Pinion folk, fall from the sky. Knights who fought as one, and he's the last feather left. This run isn't about winning glory for him, it's him deciding whether this new flock is worth protecting. Raiders is all about standing your ground. You're not dodging much, you're kind of letting bosses swing at you and then answering with retaliate. It's basically a parry that doesn't care about timing. You take the hit, and you shut the move down, and you keep swinging. Lore-wise, everything about him feels old. The horned skull helmet, the stone pillar he calls up, it feels pre-order, more godfrey than golden order. Recluse is the long-ranged caster of the group. Big FP pool, but she's low on health, and so the whole rhythm is staying back, pulling enemies with elemental defense, and using a magic cocktail to keep your casting going. Lore-wise, she's not here for the night out of obligation. She's following the trail of her own creation. The infant that consumed shadows marked the night shard and ties back to the Witch of the Wheel. The Scholar plays at a different pace than most Nightfarers. You're not going to rush into any fights, you're going to watch your spacing and use Analyze whenever it's available. Most of his strength comes from the preparation, item use, status build-ups, and knowing when to step in and when to step back. Lore-wise, he's a first-generation Albinaric. The context kind of matters. He isn't here for the night itself. He's here because Limveld holds records, medicine, and history tied to his people. The cleansing tear is central to that search, even once it becomes clear it isn't the miracle it was believed to be. What he does find is truth. That knowledge gets recorded, passed on, and protected, even when it doesn't save him personally. His relationship with the Undertaker matters because she's the one who carries that work forward when he obviously can't anymore. Undertaker, gameplay-wise, is a fast and aggressive melee character, strength and faith scaling, and she likes to hit people with hammers. Her kit revolves around using Trance and Loathsome Hex. Trance gives you more stamina and damage uptime, and Loathsome Hex can be used for closing gaps or quick revives. Lore-wise, she's always been an outcast. Killing is the only thing she knows, and the night feeds that hunger. Dropping the Night Lord's finger resembles her first time choosing restraint. Gladius is the first Night Lord you're going to fight. Gameplay-wise, the fight's about control and about keeping your cool. Someone needs to kite him, and when he splits into 3 wolves, you have to claim a wolf. Lore-wise, Gladius is one of the few Night Lords we actually get some context on. He wasn't born a monster, he was an abandoned 3-headed wolf that got taken in by a master. That master is most certainly Healstor. Same weaknesses, same blade design, even shared moves in the Everdark fight. Adele's lore is actually pretty straightforward. It was the apex predator of its island and the top of the food chain until the Night's Tide wiped out everything it hunted. That's why Adele is the way it is now. The fight is built around constant pressure and grabs, because lore-wise it's starving. Adele just keeps coming and the game really makes you feel that. In the lore, dragons usually use red lightning or white lightning, and his is purple, some kind of combination. Noster is not a solo boss, it's a duo. You've got Noster the Moth and Fortis the Scorpion, and the fight only works because they're linked. Or they're called the Sentient Pest. They come from a forest that was being eaten alive by the desert, and instead of dying out, they adapted together. That's the whole idea. One controls the space and the other punishes your mistakes. And later you learn there's even a third piece keeping them alive. Kill one, the fight's not really over. And it really makes the guy think about the fight between Radahn and Miquella. It shouldn't need to be said that it looks exactly like it, and it just doesn't end with Noster becoming a god like Miquella, I guess. But there's definitely a parallel there. Maris is honestly one of the weirdest Night Lords to fight. She doesn't feel aggressive, she just swims through the air like it's an ocean, throws out sleep and spirit summons, and if you let the fight drag, you're gonna feel it. Lore-wise, she was already this drifting ancient thing before the Night showed up. The Night just gave her a place to exist. And in gameplay that comes through, you're not supposed to rush her down. You're supposed to survive her space without falling asleep. Especially when she drops those 2 nuke-like things. If you have an Iron Eye, it'll really help you win. Libra's the Night Lord that tries to negotiate with you first. He shows up outside of the ring as a scale-bearing merchant offering you a deal, and every deal's a monkey's paw. Power in exchange for pain. In his mind, that's fairness. Libra is obsessed with order. That's what makes him so unsettling. He uses frenzy, but there's no chaotic flame, no loss of control. His frenzy is precise. Golden sigils, measured traps, even liquid frenzy. It almost feels ordered, which raises a weird question in my mind. Is Libra using frenzy as chaos? Or is he bending it into something closer to the Golden Order's logic? Balance through annihilation, but on his terms. Libra's fascinating because he's a frenzy boss that doesn't actually use the frenzied flame. Let me know in the comments what you think this guy represents. Fulgur's fight feels old school in a good way. Big arena, huge reach, lots of spear control. He zones you, forces spacing, and if you panic roll, he absolutely deletes you. This is a patience check more than anything else. Lore-wise, it checks out. Fulgur was a straight-up champion before the Knight. Loyal, disciplined, part of a warband. Then his own people betrayed him, cut off his arm. That's where things go sideways. You can actually see the split in the fight. His holy spear attacks are clean and controlled. Prayer stances, golden spears, real order energy. But that corrupted arm is wild and messy. Sometimes it even looks like it's pushing him forward more than he wants. And then there's the funny part. This holy centaur knight is weak to lightning. Like the gods he once served still scare him. Caligo is a Night Lord that fights exactly how her name suggests. Her name literally means fog or obscured vision, and that's the entire fight. She fills the arena with mist and frost, limits what you can see, and forces you to slow down whether you want to or not. Lore-wise, Caligo is described as an ancient, a being that appears at major turning points in history. She isn't driven by hunger or fury, she's observant. The night isn't something she worships, it's something she's studying. That mindset shows up in the gameplay. Caligo doesn't rush you, she spaces you out with drifting cold, builds frostbite through hail and mist, then commits to those big, deliberate attacks like the snowflake drop or her aerial barrages. What's notable is what she doesn't use. No lightning, no gold, no holy power. In Elden Ring, warmth and light are tied to life. Caligo kills by taking both away. Her frost feels closer to sorcery and that death magic than dragonfire. She's mechanically fragile. Fire and strike damage melts her fast, but if you lose tempo, she'll freeze the entire fight on her terms. Hjolster isn't like the other Night Lords, and instead of talking about gameplay, I kinda just want to talk about his lore. He wasn't born strange, hungry, or curious. He was once a knight, one soldier in a war that collapsed under its own cruelty. Far to the west, before the knight ever reaches Limveld, Hjolster fights amongst the golems, using cursed Ictaris blades, weapons designed to end wars, no matter the cost. When the infant, the thing created to win that war, turns on everyone, Hjolster challenges it, and he loses. The infant is a subject of some argument. Some say it's the knight itself, and others say it's a god. What do you think? Then the post-credit scene reframes everything. We're back in the lands between. The air tree is still standing, golden leaves drifting through the air. One of them settles on a massive figure rising from the sea. It looks like Hjolster, but not as we fought him. Rooted, quiet, almost at rest. And that's the key. Defeating Hjolster doesn't just end a boss fight, it ends a future. The night never fully takes hold. Nightreign becomes a branch that's been cut away, leaving Elden Ring's history intact. Hjolster wasn't a god, and he wasn't some cosmic mastermind. He was a man who survived ruin, failed to protect what mattered, and cursed the world in his despair. The night answered and twisted that grief into something eternal. By putting him down, we don't conquer the night through power, we stop it through resolution. The cycle breaks and the dream collapses. What's left behind isn't victory in the traditional sense, it's possibility. A world where the night never quite got its foothold, and where this story quietly ends. Alright, let's talk about the Forsaken Hollows, because to me this chapter feels like Nightreign really found its footing. From a gameplay standpoint, this is easily the most hostile region in the game. Map is tighter, visibility gets messed with constantly, and the encounters are less forgiving. What I really like though is how the story matches that tone. The Forsaken Hollows isn't about some ancient god or cosmic revelation, it's about the aftermath. What's left when the night rolls through and doesn't bother to clean up? That's where Stragas comes in. The Dreglord isn't a mastermind or a ruler, it's literally built from discarded bodies, grief, and resentment that the night left behind. It exists because the world broke, not because it chose to. That's where From Software gets its storytelling strength. And then you've got the Balancers, which I think is one of the most smarter ideas Nightreign introduces. They're not heroes and they're not villains. Their job is just to keep the scales even. Night is on one side, Stragas is on the other. When you start removing both, you become the disruption. At least that's my theory. That's why this whole chapter feels so tense. You're not stopping a villain. You're interfering with a system that's been holding itself together in the worst way possible. The DLC, The Forsaken Hollows, feels like a step in the right direction. Harder, but not randomly. The map feels designed to stress you out on purpose, and the story finally zooms in on consequences instead of escalation. It doesn't try to outdo the Night Lords, it shows you what they leave behind, and that's honestly way more interesting. Thank you for watching, and also please go ahead and subscribe and leave a comment. I'd love to hear your ideas on the game and how you liked it.